Hymns for the Lesser Gods is the debut full-length album from Fathomless Ritual, a Canada-based solo project from Brendan Dean, who I would best know him from Gut Void, a band on Blood Harvest, a pretty good band at that, who takes a lot of influences from Death Doom and like Gorguts and Finnish death metal. And I think that this is like one facet of many works that he's done over the years that explore one specific style of death metal. And in this case, it's very much taking cues from Demilich and kind of perfecting his idea or his take on that style, which has been approached in many different ways over the years. There have been grindcore bands that take a lot from early Carcass and Demilich. There are technical death metal bands who really push that sound as far as they can. There's bands like Chuthalist, or however you pronounce them, also a Canadian group, who they sort of extend the conversation in a lot of ways while bringing that sound into newer fidelity, while also putting in some Swedish influences in there too. And I think that this sticks to a Finnish sound for the most part, and leans into maybe brutal death metal a little bit, but not really in a way that you would notice, other than some of the vocal parts of it lean into some of those more experimental guttural territories, and just a little bit. So it's not a complex thing to approach if you understand what Demilich is, how Nespith sound back in the day, and how one could extend that conversation with run-on guitar riffs that sort of preach to that style and create weird, knotted, and sort of science fiction primitivity there. So what we used to call it was old school, or just a technical death metal in a style that doesn't really get that name anymore. But we'll cut into a song here just to show you what this sounds like and what his version of it ends up being. So I've said most of what's important here because this album is pure tunnel vision in the best way possible. It's sort of possessed by the same focus and the same variations on a theme in most ways, and it really hones in on just purely that Finnish death metal style sped up quite a bit, given a lot more energy, a lot of strong bass guitar tones that really flesh out this record in a very smart way. There's a lot of virtuosic guitar playing here that interjects among this sort of singular style of riffing, and overall we get like a reasonable modern expansion of what you would expect from a band like Demilich. And I don't think that it really innovates. It doesn't really do anything too new here, but it shows a lot of thought put into modernizing and bringing their own version of what was good about Demilich and what bands like Cryptworm are doing today, where there is a little bit of that gorier side to it. There's a little bit of the modern, simpler, hardcore death metal sound to it, to the beats and the way they put them together. So there's something that is current about it, but it's still totally a nostalgic sounding thing to anyone who enjoys that old sound. And again, that's as simple as it is. And it's always hard to create a conversation around a record like this, because I know that most people will just say, well, it sounds like that, and that's the end of it. But I think this is worth taking a look at, sitting with for a bit, because I found it was a pretty immersive listen. It was something that I really got into. I do have a preference for that style already, and I like weird stuff happening in death metal. And this kind of normalizes out some of the weirdness to the point where it's just a good listen. And I liked it quite a bit more than his more recent project, Puke Wraith. I think because the pacing allows for the drums to sort of make more sense when they're programmed, and I didn't find that the programmed drums were really all that noticeable with headphone listening, more so on a stereo. It definitely was, but still a pretty good and well-balanced render of the record, and a strong sort of artistic direction for it. So yeah, I'd like to see what else he could do with this sound, with more input from the drums, and maybe playing more with rhythms a little bit. But overall, I think it's a good like shot through with that style, a pretty solid death metal record that most people would be happy with if you like that style. So for me, that's a high recommendation, an easy thing to pick up, and guarantee you're going to have a good time with it if you're into this kind of thing. And a lot of people are. So check it out if you will. It releases March 1st, this Friday, and see if it's your thing, and read the review while you listen to it.